little bit of background and context to who I am and why I'm here, and hopefully some of you guys care. If you don't, I get that too. But I've spent the last 20 years in sales, and a majority of that, almost 15 years, has been in the packaging and janitorial distribution industry. I started in janitorial supplies and distribution, packaging distribution, then was recruited to a small company some of you may know called Landtech, where I oversaw a 7-state territory with distributors, moved into national accounts, and then before I left Landtech, I was running a national sales team for their systems integrator partner. And in the last 2 years there, we grew from about 12 million in sales in 2018 to 46 million in sales at the end of 2021 during COVID. Then I was recruited away again after 7 years there into working at a global organization and helping them with lead generation and business development, which has been my entire career, pretty much. You know, because when I started out in this industry, and I'm sure this is drastically different than any of you guys, but I was given 5 days of product knowledge training. I sat in a conference room very similar to this, and I had everybody come in from, I was learning about In Motion Towel and Gojo, and I was learning about Midlab, which was actually the sister company to the distributor that I worked for, and Midlab's represented here today. Go by and see them. They're a great organization. Matt Shank, great dude. But then I also learned about Sure Tape and Paragon stretch film and R122 and how it's the greatest stretch film ever invented, and you can never beat it with anything else. IPG, all of these things. And with that, I was then sent out, a greenhorn, fresh into the industry, with a territory assignment, a sales plan, and absolutely zero customers. Go get them, Tiger. Sink or swim time, buddy. Let's see what you got. Let's see if you are worth the money we're paying you. Now, how many of you guys in here experienced your start in the packaging industry, if you started like I did, very similar to that? You learned about some products, and then you were out there, go get them. Anybody have that? Yeah? Dave, how long have you been in the packaging industry?
38 years.
38 years. What about you? I saw you raise your hand. What's your name? Genevieve, how long have you? Almost 5 years. And you raise your hand. Similar experience, right? Anybody else? Who else had an experience like that? Nobody wants to raise their hand. They're like, Dave's already took it with 30 years. Right? How long, Andrew? 20 plus years. Right? So there I was. I had all this product knowledge training. I had pamphlets. I had everything that a new sales guy could need. And I was sent out into the world. And most of my days were spent cold calling and knocking on doors and log rolling under dock doors. I would find manufacturing plants. If the gatekeeper wouldn't let me in, I'd find unlocked doors somewhere around the plant. And I'd walk in and just act absolutely lost, because I figured at some point somebody was going to see this strange guy standing there walking around acting lost, and they were going to ask him, hey, what are you doing here? And be like, I don't know. I don't even know how I got in here. There was a door unlocked. I sell packaging. And hope that they would take me to the right person. If I wasn't doing that, I was spending time riding with older reps, and they would go around and I'd ask them, hey, who are my customers? Who are the people that I could sell to? If you were me right now, who would you go and target? And they would say, well, and Dave, I know you've never said this because this is not you. Well, you could go sell here, but when Diversey, Johnson Diversey as I like to call it, when Johnson Diversey kind of opened up and started, allowing everybody to carry their line, they really switched there because they had, they're buying from Veritiv now because Veritiv has the Johnson Diversey line, and they've got a warehouse up there and they can deliver better than us. Their pricing is a little bit better, and they love Veritiv. They'll never buy from us. And, well, you don't want to go that place because I tried selling at that place years ago, and that person doesn't really like us. We screwed up a bunch of stuff. And I'd be like, okay, then who can I sell to? Like, how do I know if somebody is the right customer? And this was their answer to me. Well, you got to look at the amount of cars in the parking lot, and how big the building is, and how many dock doors does it have, And that will tell you whether or not, outside of everything else we shared with you, if that's a good customer to go target. And you guys know what's crazy about all of that? Is that's still the standard of how we train salespeople to acquire new business in the industry today. It's not the exception. It's the standard. And so it really made me question and wonder, like, how do we handle picking up new business in janitorial supply and packaging distribution? Who are my customers? Who are the people that I can sell to? And it didn't seem like I was getting a lot of help from the people that I was told I needed to be talking to and asking questions to, that they would be the best ones to show you who to go sell to. Because the older sales reps, guess what they never did? They never went and cold called. Why? Because they hated it. They absolutely hated it. I'm really weird. I really love cold calling. It's one of my favorite things to do. I think I'm a glutton for punishment for it. But you know, when you have somebody that loves cold calling, and some of the associated guys know, because a guy that I train works for them and is crushing it, he loves cold calling. And he loves going out and finding who his customers are, and he's very strategic in it. And so this was something that I started doing a lot of research into from the very beginning, and what has helped me get to this point today, understanding the challenges that we face, identifying quality leads, poor collaboration between sales and marketing, not enough time selling. How many of your salespeople spend all of their time selling and no time on non-revenue generating activity? Right? Most of the times they're tracking down orders, they're making cold calls. Sometimes, if we can actually get them to do it, are they actually following up with the leads that we're selling to the wrong people? Onboarding new talent, which is difficult because you guys know it takes at least 2 years for somebody to really figure out how to sell in distribution. But does it? But that's how we work, right? And we look at the statistics about B2B sales in wholesale distribution or in the distribution industry, and all of the challenges that our salespeople are telling us, or our marketing teams are telling us, or company owners are telling us, and telling research institutes like McKinsey and Deloitte and all these things where these stats come from. And so that's what I would imagine why you guys are probably sitting in this room today, is you guys are here because you really care about figuring out how do you find the right customers so that you can serve them and care for them the way that you love to with your product, services, or solutions. Because that's the ultimate goal. As a distributor, we don't make products, we sell other people's products. But how do we use our gifts, talents, and skills with our people, paired with our products, services, and solutions, so that we can serve our customers? So there's an answer to that. And it starts by making sure we understand who our ideal customers are. Who are the right people that we can sell to? So I've had the privilege and honor of being able to lead and train teams in the industries for some of the companies that I've worked for. I've had the privilege of consulting with other distributors across the globe. And I always start with this question. And this is going to be interactive. So if you guys came in here to take a nap, I'm really sorry. I probably won't let you. But I'm going to ask you the same question I asked them. Who is your customer? So who's your customers? Who wants to take the first stab at who your customer is? Andrew, so glad that you decided to raise your hand. Who's your customer?
You're looking at this, Andrew. Am I the only other?
You're the only other bald man, right? You know, like, who's your customer?
My customer is the business owner of manufacturing and construction companies that looks to partner with distribution partners that bring better results to their business.
Awesome. So let me ask you this, because that's a great answer. I love that answer. So manufacturers, let's start there. So manufacturers, so if you were to tell me, if I was to tell you that I was going to give you a lead and it was in automotive manufacturing and it was a finishing plant where they were driving the F-150s off the lot, that they manufacture a product, that's a customer could be a customer of yours?
Conceptually.
Conceptually. Is that a customer that you have do you have a lot of similar customers to that type of company?
We do.
Interesting. Anybody else? Who's your customer? David, who's your customer?
Well, I mean, we are very multi-channel, but again, in your previous example, it would be the tier 1 and tier 2 automotive, but we really do spread across the goal. Our customers really are the people who are looking for enhancements in their line packaging solutions. So that's the folks that we target.
Really interesting. Yes, sir.
Our customer is any customer who's not in hospitality, food service, or healthcare.
Okay. So, because your name tab's flipped, I can't see your. So
I do that intentionally.
I love it. Thank you. Paper and packaging. Okay. So Howard, do you mind if I ask you a question? There's this lady. Her name's Annie. Annie's an incredible woman, and she started her own bakery business where she wants to start selling the cookies for the recipe that her grandmother had, and she loves doing this. And she's kind of gathered kind of a following a little bit, but right now she manufactures in her own kitchen, and she buys about 10 boxes a week that she's shipping things out. She really doesn't use a whole lot of void fill or anything like that. So you're telling me that is an ideal customer for you, somebody manufacturing a product out of their home and selling out of their garage.
Absolutely, because that customer can grow. So maybe special label that gives some branding, gives the customer a future idea of what they didn't know they could do in a cost-effective way. And so that customer will be a lifetime customer for us as they grow.
I love that. Yes. And is that customer going to be someone that makes an impact immediately on your overall revenue and growth for that year? And is that the type of person you want your salesperson really spending a lot of time with?
In the course of a day, it's part of the day, calling on 20 accounts a day and developing relationships. But that customer could buy their retail printed bags in quantities that are specific for a smaller user, but you never know how an opportunity comes, especially with social media.
One of the things I love, and I really appreciate that answer, Howard, is I can make a justification for why we could sell anything to anyone. And Howard just did. And he's not wrong. He's actually incredibly right. But in the grand scheme of our overall business, there are probably better customers that are worth the investment of our salespeople's time to be building relationships with, because they are more needle movers to our business. Not that we don't want to have that relationship, but is that really the ideal customer that's going to change things in our industry or in our company? Maybe not today, so we don't want to lose them. But if those are the only types of customers that we're going after, our growth is drastically limited. And I can tell you, working with distributors all over the country, most of our salespeople don't actually know who their ideal customers are. And the best way to do that, and so if you guys are note takers, this is probably the value here in this part of the conversation is, if we want to really figure out who our ideal customers are, the ones that we partner with, that look at us as a valued asset to their organization, that they can't get product out the door in 2 people if we aren't giving them the right products to keep them clean, to keep them working, to make them efficient. The ones that love working with us. Those are the customers that we want to find more of, because if we find more customers that love working with us and view us as valued partners, then the likelihood of them being able to grow and our salespeople growing with the right customers that can move the needle, that we serve at a high level, that reduces our customer churn so we're not constantly in this cycle of, well, we need new customers because we keep losing all of our customers. It changes it. And the best way to find our ideal customers is look at your best customers now. who are the ones you do the most work with?
Well, I think you need to delineate between clients and customers. Those
Correct.
are two entirely different things. A client is someone who wants the value adds, all the stuff that we do, and they don't throw me out for 50 cents on a case of toilet
Sure.
paper.
Yeah.
A customer is someone who comes in and needs 10 boxes and we're going to sell them at list
Mhm.
price. So those are two different things.
So, yes, and semantics and terminology aside, I kind of use those as both, because there are customers that we do business with that are transactional customers that take up a lot of our time. The margin is typically small. We won them on price, so we lose them on price oftentimes. And then you've got transformational customers. Those are the partners. Those are the clients, if you will, right? And so we want those types of people because they leave us less. There's not as much work in making sure that we're servicing customers where the contribution margin that we're making when we stop our truck is actually worth the money of sending the salesperson there to manage that account, right? And so if we look at our ideal clients or the clients or our partners that we're doing the most business with, it's going to give us a really great idea into who we serve and who are our customers. What's interesting is when we started going through this strategy, when I was in distribution, still working in sales, and we were a janitorial and packaging supply company out of Knoxville, Tennessee, a company called Kelsan. So we were a Southeast distributor. We had bought a company back in the early 90s that brought us into the packaging world, but it started as janitorial supplies. And when we started going through these exercises of identifying who our ideal clients or customers are, right, what we thought and the presumption was that it's going to be healthcare and education. So school systems, colleges, healthcare, nursing homes, that type of stuff, because that had been the biggest customer base that we had worked in for the longest period of time. Once we actually started getting into who were the customers that were buying from us for longer periods of times, our margin was higher in those customers. Our revenue, they bought a wide range of multiple different product lines. What we realized was it was manufacturing. And that manufacturing was actually our blue ocean. And that we could grow more, sell more, and make more money if we didn't. It wasn't stop focusing in janitorial supplies in those other verticals, but how do we increase our investment into the manufacturing space so that we could grow, keep customers longer, reduce our churn, and make more money? And one of the biggest challenges we have is keep more salespeople who we hire and train and onboard from leaving from lack of success. Lead generation, business development, the biggest challenge we face is getting our young sales teams and the people that come into our organization, how can we help them be as successful as possible, as quickly as possible, so they learn to love this industry the way many of us in this room does, and see that you can make an incredible living in this industry. My life has totally been changed by the packaging and distribution industry. Changed. And so we want to help you guys be able to do the same thing. So refining the right prospects, who are the people, how do we identify those things? The demographics, the psychographics, the geography, how many locations do they have? And really understanding to a core level the heart of our customer. The next thing that we need to do is we then need to understand within those customers, who are all the people that we need to meet and build relationships with that could buy, benefit, or influence the purchase of our product, service, or solution? So this is one of my favorite things to do, is to ask this question when I'm doing this training or I'm working with a company or a customer. So we're going to do it right here. And I'm going to venture to guess that I might know how many people there are that we need to build relationships with that can buy, benefit, or influence the purchase of our product, service, or solution. And I bet it's anywhere between 14 to 17. But we're going to see. We're going to put that to the test. So who are all the people within your best customers that could buy, benefit, or influence the purchase of your product, service, or solution? Just start throwing names out there. CFO. Process improvement. Plant manager.
We're Janssen, so like infection control.
Infection control. Who else? Quality.
Business manager.
Engineering. Business manager. Purchasing. Maintenance. Safety. Shipping manager. EVP. Owner.
The end user, if they complain enough, eventually the manager's gonna change.
Right? Shift supervisors. Production supervisors. Yes, they're customers. Because if the quality of the stuff we're selling to them stinks and the customers complain, to your point, right? The end user for those people. So right there's 18. Here's the golden question. And I ask this to salespeople, so most of the time, so a lot of you guys, this is going to be really fun. Let's think about your salespeople. Let's think about the business. How many of you can say right now a majority of your sales teams know and have identified at least 14 to 17 people within their customers that can buy, benefit, and influence the purchase of your product, service, or solution within a majority of their companies? Raise your hand. Okay. What about they know at least all of those people within 10 of their customers? Majority of the customers. How many of you have salespeople that know that at least have 3 to 4 salespeople that have 3 to 4 accounts where they know all of those people? Still not the majority of the room. When I do this, whether it's laundry distribution, electrical distribution, HVAC distribution, packaging distribution, janitorial supply distribution, and I'm doing this with sales reps, I may get one person in that room to raise their hand that says that they actually know they have one customer that is typically their best customer, where they know, if not personally, at least who each one of them are and has included them in some sort of buying decision. So then the question is, how are we connecting with these people? How are we crafting the right stories to connect with these people? If we understand that a really easy way for us to grow is once we find a new customer, once we get in front of an ideal customer, and we build the right relationships with the right people of everyone who could buy, benefit, or influence the purchase of your product, service, or solution, we are going to be creating way more opportunities within a single account, and our margin and our sales and our stickiness within our customers is going to grow. How many of you guys would say right now in this room that your salespeople understand the activity and the messaging and the story that they need to be communicating to all 14 to 17 of those people, and they understand the avenues and the channels in which how to do it? It's crazy to me. Because we have been suffering for, Dave, you said 30 years you've been in the industry? I know for 15 years, this is a battle that I faced every single day. But it's the battle that I started fighting because it's what made me successful in the industry. And so how can we help our salespeople understand the stories that they need to be communicating, getting in front of the right people at the right times, that not trying to get everyone, but the ones that raise their hand and say, hey, I really need some help. If we look at marketing, right, we'll shift to marketing for a second. If we look at marketing from a standpoint of lead generation and business development, right? And we look at it from a lot of the big brands out there that are doing a lot of B2C types of marketing. They use up to 15 different channels to communicate to their end user. Do you know how many most B2B companies use? 2 to 5. And most people really scoff in this industry at technology that they don't quite understand because it's not a tool that they ever used before. So there's some of you in here who follow me on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn religiously because it is a tool that has allowed me at every single stage of my career to be able to, it's a new channel. It's a different tool to connect with people, to build familiarity so that when I call on them, I'm not a stranger. They've been nurtured. And what needs to happen is how do we bridge this gap between sales and marketing? Because marketing is so great at building ideal customer profiles, understanding personas, understanding the messaging and how we serve, but yet we do it from brand to brand or end user, and not so much using that power and that energy through our sales teams to do more human-to-human marketing, building the right relationships and creating that familiarity and pouring gasoline on what they do, because it's our salespeople that make the difference. It's the purpose in how they sell. Our products, services, and solutions matter, but our salespeople building the right relationships with the right customers, that's what matters most. That's how we grow. And our avenue to be able to communicate with them is so important because there's multiple ones out there, yet we get stuck in the same cycle being told, well, we can't call on that company because we've tried to sell them before years ago and they don't really like us and they really love Veritiv. And I can pick on Atlantic Packaging because they're not here because I used to absolutely crush their business and take all types of business from them. Don't tell them I said that, but I did. And so we want to help. So the messaging and how you're communicating, once you find your ideal customers and you understand all the personas in there, the right messaging and how you are sharing your story and how you serve matters, and the channels in which you use it matter. Then it's all the activity that goes into all these things. I've got 2 examples up here. But it's not just about cold calling. It's not just about knocking on doors. It's not just about making phone calls and sending emails. It's about utilizing all of our technology as a tool for what it was created for, which is to build relationships with people. And so if I was to ask you, and I'm going to give you guys an example, okay? So when I was a territory manager working at Kelsan in Knoxville, I would go out and I would pick about 10 customers per 2 weeks and I would hammer the absolute snot out of them. If you guys follow Porter on LinkedIn and you see Porter's out there, always out there cold calling. But I promise you, I'm crazier than he is when it comes to cold calling. I once had a customer, some of you guys may know him, or a potential customer that I was working on. They were called Darling Products out of Knoxville, Tennessee. Right? Darling was buying from Atlantic at the time and a little bit from Associated with some of their polyolefin shrink film. And I went in there and the guy, Michael, who was there at the time, he would never respond to anything. Emails, phone calls. And when I call people, I don't just call people once in a day and hope that they answer. If you're on my list for a 2-week period, you're probably getting called 10 to 15 times a day. I'm not going to leave you a message every time.
How do you balance that between, I always tell the reps there's a fine line between persistence and annoyance.
Mm-hmm.
And if you call me 15 times a day, I don't know if we're ever talking.
Yep.
How do you balance that?
Well, so I love that question. And here's how I would answer that. I balance it by understanding that my job is not to make you want to talk to me. My job is to disqualify you as a customer. And if you're someone that gets annoyed by someone who is persistent and because they believe they can truly help you, then you're probably not the best fit to buy my stuff. So I would move on. Now, I would still try to generate a relationship with you, but I'm not just calling you 10 to 15 times in a day. I'm also going to leave you a handwritten note. I'm also going to email you. I'm also going to connect with you on LinkedIn. Michael at Darling was so elusive with me. I literally made missing person signs with his face on them and said, missing person, Michael, with his picture. If you find him, please call. And I stood out in front of the manufacturing plant with donuts and coffee. And as every person walked in, I would hand them donuts, a coffee, and a missing persons flyer with Michael's face on it. Until he was the one that I handed the flyer to. And you know what? I set a meeting. And Associated and Atlantic, they were servicing them really, really well. I couldn't find a lot of value. But you know what? When Michael left and he went to a new customer, to a new company, guess who he called? Me. Derek wasn't at Associated yet, so they were still calling me. But for me, I understand my purpose as a salesperson. And it's to go out there and know and not settle for anything less than doing everything in my power to serve my customers, even the ones who don't know me yet. And being willing to take use of every single tool that I could use to do it. And so when you think about your sales teams, are they engaging with your customers in that way? Are they being relentless in the pursuit of serving the customers that they can serve at a high level? Are they using all of the avenues at the right timing with the right strategy to be able to connect with their ideal customers and all those people? Raise your hand if you guys have full sales teams of crazy people like me who love nothing but going out and finding new business to pick up. So how do we help them get over the hump? We help put them in the right place at the right time. And then we start tracking things. So this was something that we started doing, and I'll explain all of this because it kind of explains what we do as an organization. I'll save that for last because I'm not, as surprising as it is, I'm not actually here to try to sell you anything. I believe if you guys can get this right, and we help with stuff like this, but if you guys get this right and you can really help build this strategy with your sales teams, you are going to grow and serve more customers. But it's now starting, how do we aggregate the data that we're collecting from our ideal customers and the personas? How do we know the messaging is connecting with them in a right way? How do we know we're connecting with the right people? You asked me that earlier in how do we make sure, are we just guessing? Well, through data aggregation and looking at the analytics, we can now start picking out the personas that are more apt to respond to the messaging. We can understand the messaging that they're connecting with. We can understand the nurturing campaigns that we're doing that is driving more engagement. And we can then continue to refine our strategy as we go. So now we're not guessing from a shotgun approach like we are at the beginning. Now we're getting very specific and refined into how we are the most effective. And that, it's the Moneyball approach to sales, right? And so the data is, how do we learn what stories, with what contacts? How are we making sure that they're engaging so that with each new strategy or strategic campaign to go after our customers, we're way more effective at onboarding new business? Any questions so far? So the results, how are we making sure that we're getting the results and then we're following up with the process? 48%, it's on a slide earlier, 48% of salespeople never follow up at all. Zero follow-up, according to Deloitte and McKinsey. 44% of salespeople only follow up once. And a follow-up is not a cold call. A follow-up is after they've had a conversation. Most salespeople in cold calls will use one avenue. They might make one phone call every 2 weeks. And I tell people, I did not get my incredibly beautiful wife to marry this kid from Cornfield, Indiana, when I moved out here to LA after college, because I called her once and then 2 weeks later I got back around to her on my list. But that's what we do. We have a list of 50 to 70 people we're trying to call. Well, and I'll call them and then 2 weeks rolls around and then we call them again. Why do I call people 10 to 15 times? Because I want them to know I want to do business with them. I'm willing to fight to do business with them. I'm willing to go to every end because I believe I can serve them at a high level and I believe it. I'm willing to do anything that is morally and ethically right to have a conversation, not to sell them. not to sell them. That's the byproduct of everything else. So how can we make sure that our data is visible and we can see it? We understand our pipeline, and it's not pipeline's sake for what most of our salespeople think. Oh, well, we got to look at a pipeline. Well, we're just being micromanaged. No, you're not. We need to understand the data so that we can be more effective. And as we're doing this, we start seeing growth. We start seeing all of this stuff. We make it transparent so that we understand how to be more effective. You know, we use HubSpot for what we do, but we integrate in lots of any other stuff. The other thing that creates even more challenges in our industry is then we start investing in all types of stuff. We invest in Zoom Info. How many of you in this room have a subscription to Zoom Info? How many of you would say right now that Zoom Info is worth the investment to your organization? You might get some. You build really big lists, right? Build big, huge lists. But then what happens with all those people on the list? Are we doing everything effectively to be able to reach those people? And the answer for most people in the industry is no. And so you guys, because I've seen it, we were paying at Kelsen, we were paying $18,000 a year for Zoom Info. We were using this other stuff. We were using SalesEye, where we had companies making cold calls on our behalf. And then you know what would happen when we would show up? Those weren't the right people. And they actually didn't buy anything we sold. It was like, this is great. I'm spending most of my time trying to sell people that can't even buy my stuff. 50% of the customers that we go after in the market are not the right customers. They're not. McKinsey, it's one of their studies. 50% in wholesale distribution of the customers that are being targeted and are not the right customers. And so this is here. Tons of investment. Lots of frustration because we're investing in this stuff and it's not giving the ROI, so it must not work. Let's go back to the traditional things. Let's go back to cold calling and phone calls and knocking on doors. And then we've got sales forces that hate doing it. So how do we help? The reason why, just a little bit of vulnerability here. For years, working in this industry, I felt like, gosh, there's got to be a way I can serve this industry different. I've been successful in this industry. I've got recruited to industry leaders. People hire me to go and consult and do all these things, but I was the limiting factor. Because when I would go and consult, do you know what I would do? I would build ideal customer lists for people. I would be a Zoom Info, but I was so much more strategic in who I was connecting with. I would ask their best customers, what's the value in working with XYZ company? What's the true value they bring you? Because us as distributors, we have our perceived value in how we think we serve our customers. But if we and this is a great question to ask your customers, by the way, what is the real value that you think we bring to your organization? How have we truly helped you? And I bet their perception of your value and your perception of your value are going to be a little bit different. Because their perception has nothing to do with products, services, or solutions. And we think all of our value has to deal with our products, services, or solutions. They're the tool. They're the avenue of the service. Right? So what we do is and why I became so just interested in this is I was always the limiting factor, because I know I can take a list of 3,000 people and I'm going to grow with it. But not all of you have crazy people like me in your organization who love to go and knock on doors and jump fences and fly past security guards because they've stopped me every time at the gate, and the gate just happened to be open this time and I ain't stopping. You're going to have to come and get me. It's a really great story about that. I wrote an article on. So what we do is we build these ideal customer profiles. We find all of the stakeholders within the organizations that could buy, benefit, or influence the purchase of your product, services, solution. Then we start partnering with you in engagement by using LinkedIn and email to strategically reach out to them, crafting the messaging so that it's engaging, not throwing up a... How many have heard the term or the phrase, throw up in the lobby? Or spill your candy in the lobby? Do you know we do that in most of our emails and messages that we use on LinkedIn, which is why they don't work? But it's not our messaging. It can't be. It can't be our messaging that doesn't work. It's the customers. They don't like being reached out to on LinkedIn. 4 out of 5 people who drive decisions in our customers are on LinkedIn, and they view people who they have familiarity with on LinkedIn as thought leaders in the industry and are more likely to take a meeting with you or to respond to a message than salespeople who aren't. But we don't use tools. We do because we want to be where our decision makers are. And we find them. And it's not all pulled from LinkedIn. We pull stuff from ZoomInfo. We pull stuff from LinkedIn Sales Navigator. We pull stuff from project databases to find all of the stakeholders, right? Then we start engaging them strategically with messages and all of this stuff. And as we go through, we're getting people we're not getting the 99%. They'll come later. But we want those 1% who are ready to raise their hand and say, yeah, I really have a need. And I would really like to have a conversation. And we average, on average, about 20 to 30 meetings each month with people who raise their hand and say, yeah, I'd like to have a conversation. And so this is one of our case studies, a machine broker, right? We did one campaign, right? One campaign. We found 9,032 stakeholders in their market. We were doing connections of 200 to 300 new people a month, which means now our marketing strategy paired with our sales strategy allows us to have a more human-to-human marketing touch. We can be more authentic. And instead of brand to individual, we can pump that stuff out through our salespeople, and it's individual to individual, which builds trust quicker because most decision makers today say that they believe they deserve a more individualized experience. They deserve it, they say. I think there's a lot of things we deserve. I'm not sure if that's it. But if they say that that's what they want, then how do we give them that? And then you're making through email and stuff. And we talk about, in the email, we talk about, hey, we connected with you on LinkedIn and we sent a message from LinkedIn. We're like, hey, we also sent you an email address. And through email and through all of this stuff, we're averaging 20 to 30, meetings per month. And the cool thing about it is when we're doing this, some of you guys, because I know Ernest does this and they do a really good job. Several of you do. I know Piedmont does something very similar. But you guys will do marketing campaigns where you're like, hey, we're going to promote this particular product or this particular thing, and let's send this stuff out through our newsletter or whatever to our customer base to see if anybody bites, right? Or, you've got inside salespeople or SDRs that are calling current customers who just placed an order asking if they need add-ons or whatever, and we send marketing stuff back to them. Well, now, after the people raise their hand, we still have all of these other connections that we can now do those same marketing campaigns through. But we're not limited to do one marketing campaign at a time. You can build a campaign and run it specifically just for nursing homes, reaching out to all the stakeholders in nursing homes in your territory. Oh, and you also want to do one of these campaigns to be able to do it in manufacturing, specifically for food and beverage manufacturers who have 3 locations and their decision makers are there local. We can do that too. So there's no limit or upcharge in how we do. And we're not doing pay per click or any of that stuff. That's not the point. This is real sales enablement that we work in. This is a water distribution technology company that we work with. 17,000 leads in the database, 140 to 160 per month. For them, for a deal there, their deal size was about $50,000 per deal. 10 to 15 new conversations where they're getting an opportunity to sell, to the right people who have raised their hand and say, yeah, we actually need to have a conversation about that. In this room right now, and I'm not going to say who it is, we put out our second podcast episode called the Good News Podcast, talking about how we bridge the gap between sales and marketing to help companies find and care for the people that they love to serve. Little tagline there for you. Literally had someone reach out to me and say, hey, listen to your podcast, really struggling with that. With a distributor, a packaging distributor, I would love to have a conversation and see what you could maybe do for us. And that's how we help. We are the Daily Vest. And, shout out to Porter. I met Porter in this industry, and I reached out to him. I said, hey, man, I think we've stumbled on something really cool. I think they found a way to automate what I do that has allowed me to be successful in this industry. And I'd love to run it by you to see if this is something that could really serve the janitorial and packaging distribution industry, because I believe we can change things. I believe we can make it better. I think we can help these companies become more successful. And because of that, I get to stand in front of you here today because we were introduced to AFLink and we shared this message with them. And they were like, we would love to have you guys come in and work with our members to help them find and serve the customers they love to serve. So what questions? I know I said a lot, I know I threw a lot, and we've got about 11 minutes. What questions can I answer for you?
Quick
Yes.
one. Great content. Daily Vest. Tell me why that name.
Well, so Daily Fest, one of our partners, and just like Carlo, tech guru, he had been in growth marketing and sales and marketing for some pretty high-level Fortune 500 companies, working in lead generation and top of funnel. And every single day he wore a vest. And so he had his daily vest. And the tech stack that was built from that, that was the name. And then, we just ran with it. And so, what we do is we're a tech stack that literally helps you build your ideal customer profile list, build out your messaging, build these campaigns. We help refine the data, aggregate the data, so that as we continue to build more campaigns, we're able to be more strategic and effective in how we help you get people to raise your hand of those ideal customers who are ready to have a conversation. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, do you also storytell when you craft the emails and everything?
We do. Yep, there's an aspect of storytelling. We're also helping with, content generation a little bit, just so, the nurturing campaign part of it, the after the direct outreach, those nurturing campaigns become really important to continue building that familiarity. And so we help with strategy around that with your marketing teams. We work a lot with your sales teams to make sure that we're using the right personas, communicating with the right people, and telling the right story, and helping collect those stories, because that's what our customers want to hear. They don't want to hear about InMotion Towel. They want to hear about how InMotion Towel has helped a very similar company next to them reduce their usage.
Do you tailor the storytelling to individual titles or positions?
Yes, we do.
Email blast can actually have 14 different stories.
Yeah, so what we do is we start a general story because, again, we're not trying to sell them in our messaging. We're trying to generate interest in having a conversation. But as we continue to refine the messaging, because we're always going through it and see what connects, we can build during the program, we can build a strategic campaign for those certain individuals with that messaging, because we know it's going to work and they're more likely to connect because the data says that they are. Any other question? I'm that good? Jeffrey, I know you got a question.
I'm just impressed. My first AFLink meeting, someone said Blue Ocean contribution margin, and you have one more. Personas.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, look. Yeah. So I want you guys to write something down for me if you can. I want you to write this down. 865 865 414 0619. Yep. That is my personal cell phone number. Because you guys are going to leave here, and I encourage you, we are here until tomorrow afternoon when we drive back, and I fly back to Knoxville and Carlo drives back, or flies back to Chicago. But we're here, we're having dinner with some of you guys tonight. But if you have questions, if you want to pick our brain, if you want to tell me, John, I don't think that this is going to work and I think you're absolutely crazy, I would love to have that conversation with you and learn why. But that's my phone number. And look, if you guys are interested in what we're doing and think it could potentially be something that brings value to your sales teams, that helps you build more engagement and keep your younger sales talent who's coming on board, helping them be more successful. You're helping put your seasoned reps in front of customers that you know that they can serve and do a really good job with. And you want to grow and start using the tools at your disposal to grow effectively and efficiently, I would love to have a conversation with you about it.